Sparking Change with Gigi, a show that aims to make the world a better place by bringing together authentic minds. This show encourages each of us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Get ready to be inspired and join us on this journey to create a brighter future for all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sparking Change with Gigi. I'm your host, Giovanna Tartarone, and today we're going to be talking about a life through astrology. I met Phil McPhillamy. Welcome. He is an amazing person who has introduced me to astrology in a whole new way. You know, the only thing I knew about astrology was my horoscope. I have to be honest with you, but it's really, there's so much more to learn, and you have such an interesting story. So welcome to the show. I really appreciate you coming along to share your knowledge. You are an actor and an astrologist, and it's a fascinating story, so please tell us about it.
Oh, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Giovanna, for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here talking with you. Yeah, as you say, I'm an actor and an astrologer. You know, actors usually have a day job. Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, look, it's one thing to be an actor. It's another thing to be a film star. Film stars don't have day jobs, but most actors do. And that day job can be, well, the traditional one is waiting tables. I have done that in my time. And, you know, anything that pays the bills. But in my case, it really started for me when I was a kid, when I was really quite young. I mean, like 4 or 5 years old. I started to become aware of the night sky. And I do remember this moment when I, you know, looking up at a full moon, aged, I was 4 or something, and just being astonished, really seeing it and the brightness of it. And it was one of those harvest moons, you know, sometimes the moon appears, you know, really enormous. And of course, in my young imagination, I just thought it was fantastic, you know, this other world, and could we ever get there? And this was, in fact, before the moon landing in 1969. And then, so what happened was that I didn't know what I could do with this fascination. But as I grew up, I realized that you could do this for a job. This could be your job. You could be an astronomer. So I wanted to become an astronomer, and I learned some basic astronomy of the structure of the solar system, the names of the planets, their distances from the sun and from each other, how long they take to orbit the sun, those kinds of things. And I was fascinated by them. And in those days, this was in the 1960s, you know, technology was not nearly as advanced as it is now. So, for example, in those days, we all thought that the planet Jupiter, which is the largest planet in the solar system, had 13 moons. Well, now we know it has more than 60. So that kind of thing, you know, our knowledge of the physical structure of the solar system has increased enormously. And anyway, my story was that by the time I was about 12, 2 very significant things happened. One was that I really understood that I just really didn't have the mathematical ability, and I didn't really have the understanding of physics to be an astrologer. I was pretty good at arithmetic. You know, I could add and subtract. I could do that kind of thing. But, you know, once we got to quadratic equations, or, you know, advanced trigonometry, or, you know, those kinds of things which an astronomer has to be able to handle, you know, I realized that perhaps it wasn't for me. And the other significant thing that happened was that I got a vocational call to become an actor. I was about 12. It had crossed my mind, but suddenly I was 12 years old. No, this is what I have to do. I have to become an actor. And that was quite a difficult journey in itself, because I didn't know how you did that. So I spent my teen years really a little bit lost and quite deeply frustrated But long story short, I did manage to get myself to a drama school, a conservatory in London, England, which is where I'm from. And I did 3 years there of training, and I've been an actor for 40 years, and I've had the most wonderful time. I mean, I really have. I think it's a great way to spend your life. And I've been lucky enough to work from northern Scotland to southern Australia, from Eastern Europe, Israel, all over the United States, Broadway, and so on, and in China as well. So I feel like I get around, and as I like to say in my line as an actor, they pay you in fun. Not so much in money. They pay you in money too, but they really pay you in fun.
You got to travel the world.
I got to travel the world.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I love it. It's a wonderful. It's great. There's a great. I think one of the advantages of the acting profession is you get to meet all kinds of people from all kinds of places. You meet people internationally, young, old, of all kinds of every ethnicity.
Cultures, yeah.
Yeah, culture.
Beautiful.
So it's a mixed. It's now, and you do a variety of jobs. The environment's always changing. That kind of thing. So if you like variety in your life, it's terrific. But this lifelong fascination with the sky and the stars continued all the way through. And when I was in my 20s, I met. I knew an astrologer, and he did a reading for me, and I was really stunned, by what he was able to say about me, and I found it very useful, and I started to read. This was in the 1970s, late 1970s, early 80s. There was a very influential book published by a woman called Liz Green in England. She's half American, actually, Liz Green, and she's also a Jungian analyst. Anyway, she wrote a book called Saturn, A New Look at an Old Devil.
Oh, interesting.
It was huge at the time, because in traditional medieval astrology, Saturn is the sort of big bad planet. Of course, these days we have a much more sophisticated psychological view of what Saturn is and what it can mean in your life. Of course, the thing is, of course, all of us have all the planets and all the signs of the zodiac and all the houses of the horoscope all the time. We all have everything. What makes it individual is the emphasis. We can have more planets in one element than another, or in one modality, and so on and so forth. The shape of our particular chart is what makes it individual. Anyway, I began to get acquainted with a couple of astrologers, but I didn't really have time to study it seriously. And then the other thing that happened was that back in my early 20s, I had been to a psychic who'd been recommended to me, and I was very impressed with her. I didn't say anything. She said, "Welcome to the entertainment community," on behalf of Ivor Novello, who was a big star of stage in the 1920s in England. I thought, where did she pull that out? That was amazing to me. Anyway, after we'd been talking for about half an hour or so, she said, "Oh yeah," she said, "there's something else for you to do after you've been an actor." And I said, "Oh, how interesting. What is that?" And she said, "I'm not going to tell you." I thought, this is crazy. I thought I should ask for my money back. I mean, I need to know, right? So anyway, all through the years, occasionally I would think, oh, there's something else, but I wonder what it is. Anyway, I kind of forgot about it. And then one day in my early 50s, I suppose, I woke up and I thought, there's something else for me to do. And it turns out that it's astrology, which is, there's an old joke, psychic fair cancelled due to unforeseen circumstances. So it reminds me of that, And so then I began to really study seriously astrology, and I kind of, I'm amazed when I think back how little I really knew about it. I knew the things that everybody knows. I knew my sun sign.
Yeah.
I had a vague idea why my moon was, but I wasn't sure. And I certainly didn't know the rest of my chart. What I didn't know was how intricate it can be, how sophisticated it can be, how many techniques there are, and how many different approaches. And fairly quickly, I began to understand that the quantity of what I didn't know outweighed the quantity of what I did know by a factor of approximately infinity.
Yeah.
Right? Which is, I mean, that applies to everything in life.
Yes, yes.
You're lucky to know anything at all, really, when you consider. But astrology, particularly, is the study of the universe. So why wouldn't it be endless? Of course, it's endless. And the other thing is that it's exploding in terms of the general interest in it. Of course, that's partly because of the internet.
Yes.
But there are a couple of other things going on as well, I think, in my opinion. So, going backwards in time, until 1781, the 7 planets of the ancient world, as they're called in astrological terms, including both the sun and the moon, which in astrological vocabulary are called planets, even though, of course, we know that the sun is a star and the moon is a satellite. They are called planets. That's the vocabulary. So the planets from the moon, which is our nearest celestial body, out to Saturn, was the end of the solar system. Was at the end was Saturn, because that's the furthest planet that could be seen with the naked eye. In 1781, a telescope, there was a sufficiently powerful telescope and a sufficiently gifted mathematician to deduce the presence of a further planet, and that planet was Uranus. And that was immensely significant because it exploded human understanding of the structure of the solar system on the instant. Suddenly, it was understood the solar system was at least twice as large as we had thought. And then, of course, the other 2 outer planets, Neptune and Pluto, were discovered, Neptune in 1846 and Pluto in 1930. And then in the rest of the 20th century, the asteroids, a couple of asteroids had been picked up in the early 19th century, and various sort of other bodies began to be discovered. But really, since 2000, the year 2000, hundreds of further planetary bodies, they're called planetoids by the International Astronomical Union, responsible for naming them. But there are dozens of outer planets, and the size and structure of the solar system is again developed or developing in human understanding. And what are the implications for humanity generally? There are implications.
Which we're not made aware of, until we dig deeper to understanding what astrology really is and how it affects us. And we'll do it later, but I had the pleasure of sitting down with you, and you looked at my chart, and the information that you gave me, I was just totally stunned to know how accurate you were to many things. So I can vouch that there is a beautiful connection between the work that you do and humanity, how we feel and why we make certain decisions in life. So,
well, thank you for saying that, and I relate to what you're saying, because that's exactly the experience I had. When my chart was read back when I was 30 years old. I thought, wow, how did that happen? Yeah, I mean, I think you have to understand that if you tell an astrologer your birthday, it can be quite revealing. So, yeah, yeah. I mean, I mean, let's say that there's a lot more to it than, is this you see a sun sign column in a magazine, is this a good day to go shopping? There's more to it than that.
Right.
Actually, most people know their sun sign and perhaps their moon. Not everybody knows their rising sign, and most people don't know what the other planetary energies are doing in their lives. But sun sign astrology, there's one astrologer who's, he put it very well. He said, trying to understand astrology just by your sun sign column in a magazine is like trying to understand a cathedral through looking at a shopping mall, or trying to understand a Mozart symphony by listening to an advertising jingle. It's that kind of relationship.
Yes.
And the other thing is that I think that, when I was, I still am an actor, but some years ago I was in a play called Copenhagen, which was about the meeting of two physicists, two very famous physicists. He was a Danish man called Niels Bohr, Bohr. And Niels Bohr is known as the 20th century father of quantum physics. So, as I said to you, I love physics, but my understanding stops at a certain point. I just get baffled. So in order to prepare for this role, I bought a book called Quantum Physics for Dummies. Okay.
Oh, I got to get that one.
Yeah, no, well, I'm able to tell you that I got through 4 pages, and then I just said, no, it's hopeless. I'm just going to have to fake it. But I did understand one very significant formulation from quantum physics, which is this: a particle can also be a wave. A particle can also be a field. And one of the guys that I was working with had a lot more physics understanding than me, and we were able to discuss this somewhat, and the implications of that are enormous. And I think that, in fact, quantum physics has a lot. There's a lot of understanding available to quantum physicists of the way astrology works, and vice versa. And I think the two disciplines will once again unite at some point within the next 500 years.
Or sooner.
Absolutely.
Because science is coming together with quantum physics and are making remarkable findings.
You're absolutely right.
There's a connection with all of it.
Absolutely. And that's right. One of the problems is that for a long time, mechanistic reductionist science, the one that says, it's just a bunch of rocks, that science has been very anti-astrology. And I think in the scientific community at large, you might be risking your professional reputation if you give any time or serious thought to astrology. I think that is going to change. I do really, yeah. And actually, it's very, it's much, it's kind of spearheaded by the younger generation, I think. My kids, for example, I think, they know where their moon is in their charts.
Yeah.
And,
I agree. The younger generation have more interest in knowing how the universe works versus just accepting what, it's being said. They like to explore more. So I see that as well, which, astrology is not easy to understand. I will give you that, just how you say.
Well, to tell you the truth, when I first started studying seriously, I found a mentor who was very generous with her time. And she said this one phrase. She said, "It's not nothing to study astrology." And boy, was she right about that. But having said that, I mean, even with a very little, listen, if you spend a month and read a good book, there's some very good quality books, you could do a lot. You could do a lot with a little.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
but you had an interest. You were born with a little gift. I believe. From
Yeah, and I kind
understanding.
of parked it, you know, in the middle of my life. I just, and I'm very glad that I remembered in time.
Yes,
You
and
know,
I will say you are truly an amazing reader. I mean, you lost me somewhere between there. You lost me. We're gonna take a short break, and we're gonna come back, and we're gonna read my chart.
oh
I'm
wow.
gonna share it with everyone. You know, I'm gonna be the guinea pig here. So we'll be back, everyone.
Now, the vast majority, approximately 95% of the people of all countries, go around and around without aim or purpose. They drift with the circumstances of life, good or bad.
A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind.
Whereas the successful individuals create their own circumstances and ride them to victory.
When you're on purpose, you're living on purpose. You will never quit if you have a real purpose.
A burning desire to be and to do is the starting point from which the dreamer must take off. But what I have done has been recorded, it's been tested, it's being taken to a free world, and it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born.
And it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born. We're some of those people. That we're spreading this to the world. As your awareness grows, the doubt is gone, so that you can manifest whatever it is your heart desires. Isn't that beautiful?
So welcome back, everyone. So this is exactly what we're trying to do, is bring awareness even to astrology, how it can really impact our lives. So are we ready for my chart?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's see.
There it is. Okay,
Oh,
great.
there it is.
Okay, well, the very first thing to do when you do a reading for someone is to check that you've got the birth details right. I mean, because we have looked at this chart, so I know that you were born October 28th, 1969. Yeah, that's right.
When you started, didn't you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. But
How funny is that?
I'm just saying that, you know, we got it. Because once I did a reading for someone, and we were about 15, 20 minutes, and she goes, this isn't making any sense. And then we looked, and I realized that I had the date wrong by 2 months. So we adjusted it and started again, and that time it made more sense. So the date and the time is obviously the date. Let me put it this way. On any given day, the planets will be in certain positions in the sky, and that's true for everybody on Earth. What makes it personal to you is the location on planet Earth and the time of day between, obviously, the first second of midnight and the last second of midnight and the whole of that day. Because the Earth is turning all the time, so the Earth's relationship to the planets in the sky changes significantly. About every 2 hours, you get a different, what's called a rising sign, and the moon moves by 1 degree every 2 hours, also approximately. Okay, let's talk about your chart, Giovanna.
All I know is that it looks like the Wheel of Fortune right now.
Oh, yeah, okay, fair enough. It does a bit look like the Wheel of Fortune.
But yes, let's talk about it, because it's very intricate.
This chart tells me that you're an absolutely lovely person, that you're wonderful to be around, and that you will achieve great success. Well, that's the kind of fortune you want, right? When you go and take you for a reading.
Of course.
Actually, the chart does tell me some of those things. Let me unpack it a little bit for you. So you have when you were born, the sun was in the sign of Scorpio, and your moon was in the sign of Gemini, and the rising sign, also known as the ascendant, is Cancer. So let's talk about the rising sign. What we're doing, one way to look at this chart, to understand this chart, is we're looking down on the Earth from celestial north. So modern Western astrology was developed in Greece, mainly, in the Mediterranean. It also traveled through North Africa and into Europe, and various cultures developed it in various different ways. But mostly it's a Northern Hemisphere development. So if you were born in the northern hemisphere and you were looking towards the equator facing south, but if you look to your left, the sign coming over the horizon at the time of your birth is your rising sign. And if we look at this chart and we look at the, so to speak, the 9 p.m. point, as if it was a clock wheel, you can see the blue glyph there at 15 degrees and 54 minutes of Cancer. What does that mean? Well, the rising sign is kind of how you meet the world. It's your interface between you and the rest of us. It's how we perceive you to begin with. Cancer is a water sign, and therefore it deals with the emotional world, with the feelings. And it's, of all the signs, probably the most emotionally sensitive.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so, okay, and so the sign of Cancer, the glyph, the symbol for Cancer, is Cancer the crab. Well, what do we know about the crab? A crab has an outer shell and a couple of sharp claws, right? So it needs protection because of its sensitivity. And it's a water creature. And sometimes the tide is coming in, sometimes the tide is coming out. So you are prone, perhaps, to get these variations in the state of your emotions. You know, it can be a little bit tidal, which can mean that it's difficult for those around you and those you love to know exactly what's going on. But you are gifted with great sensitivity, empathy, sympathy, and an understanding of other people. And also, the basis of Cancer really is nurture. There is this ability, usually this talent, natural talent and gift, to look after everybody. It's in a way the most maternal of the signs. And you can have maternal energy, whatever gender you are. You can look, well, you can look after people, right? So I would say that's immensely strong in your chart for starters. Is that fair enough, Giovanna? Does that kind of?
That's why I became a teacher, right? I believe.
Okay. You became a teacher. Well, I'd forgotten that, but you have a line of destiny in your chart that that connects you with higher education, with philosophy and the search for meaning. And that's an ideal placement for a teacher. The other thing is that I would say family must be tremendously important to you. And the technical reason for that is that you have 4 planets in Libra in the 4th house of origin. And Libra is, of all the signs, is probably the most civilized. Right?
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's the one, you know, it's if everybody behaved well, it would be a perfect world. If we all loved each other, there'd be no conflict. It's kind of the aspiration of the Libran energy. But there's more to it than that, because you have, there's a point in the chart called the IC, which indicates a sort of perhaps early family life or point of origin, or the way you organize your own domestic environment, your home. And Pluto is right there on that angle. Pluto is a powerful planet. This tiny planet, it used to be the furthest planet in the solar system. In mythology, one of the attributes of Pluto was invisibility. So this indicates a certain invisible or behind the scenes power, strength. Plutonic energy, when it's placed in an important way in the chart, often indicates great strength and an ability to recuperate from whatever setbacks you may experience, and we all have them, of course. So there's something there about whatever, you know, I mean, listen, I've never really met anyone who didn't experience adversity or even trauma at some point in their lives. And this indicates that you're a survivor.
Right on the button. You hit it on the nose, right? I am a cancer survivor, so I it's so true. But
well, I mean that you know, it does resonate in the chart, and I think there's also an interesting what's the polarity, if you like, in the chart, in that, you know, you have great people skills, I would say.
Thank you.
You know, you're all about loving people. You know, this is part of why you're here, shall we say?
It's part of why we're all here. I think we all have a connection that you know, there's that spider web that
we're all connected.
We're all connected in such a way.
Well, let me ask you this then. This is a question, really. I certainly go along with that, and I think your chart shows that. At the same time, there's a part perhaps where you feel like an outsider or that you have. It's almost as if you've come from another place. I don't know if you connect with that at all.
So I do, because part of me, you know, when I went through my transformation and my adversity, it led me into personal development. And I started really learning more about the energetic world. Mm-hmm. So now that I have this knowledge, I feel that because I really became interested in it.
Right.
So I'm meeting a lot more people who don't know.
So let's talk about the knowledge part of it. Your moon is in Gemini in the 12th house. Well, let's unpack that a little bit. The moon is to do with, once again, it's feelings. The moon is all kinds of things. In Western culture, you know, in part of Europe, the archetypal feminine is represented by the moon, certainly the mother, your own mother, or your experience as being a mother, mothering in general. The moon is a feminine energy. In the southern part of Europe, that's true. La Lune, the French say, she's feminine. But in Germany, it's a masculine energy. So it's really interesting. In a way, both things are true, of course. The archetypal energies express themselves with variations in different cultures. Your moon is in Gemini. And Gemini is all about learning, about gathering information, also teaching. It's about exchange of information, communication of all kinds, written, spoken, non-verbal. It's also the trickster. It's where we get our sense of humor. Gemini loves pranks and practical jokes. Also, it indicates a huge diversity of interests. A Gemini moon is, of all placements, I would say, the one that indicates that particular feature more strongly than anything else. And then it's the 12th house. Well, the 12th house is the house of mystery, the house of the hidden, the house of secrets. It also connects with the ancestors in astrological thinking. So all of that is also enhanced because your moon connects very directly with your Mercury. Mercury rules Gemini. So there's a sort of, there's a double emphasis on knowledge, on learning, on teaching, on understanding, and applying all this knowledge in a useful, in a way that would be useful to other people. And what I haven't talked about so far is your Scorpio sun, which is Scorpio is perhaps what, of all the placements in your chart, indicates depth.
Depth?
Depth. No, depth. Sorry.
Okay.
I didn't mean to say depth. No. No. I mean, we're all going to die one day. That's a long time for us. Depth. Scorpio is a water sign, and water is strongly indicated in your chart. You have a water rising sign. Your midheaven, what you aspire to, professionally, is also a water sign of Pisces, and you have the sun in Scorpio, also water. Of the three water signs, Scorpio is the most intense. And one lovely feature of Scorpio is that it's capable of very deep and enduring and meaningful friendships and great loyalty, and would go to lengths, to look after their friends. Scorpio people, Scorpio energy is not particularly forgiving if crossed, but that's all mitigated by the Libra in your chart, I think. So
don't cross the line, right? I'm just
right. Well, yeah.
yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah. But yes, and then there's this very interesting figure that you have, Chiron. Are you familiar with Chiron?
Chiron?
Yeah. It's because Chiron was discovered in 1977. It's not an asteroid. It's not a planet. It's a small body that orbits between the planets of Uranus and Saturn. Therefore, symbolically, it connects us with the collective energies. The myth of Chiron is the myth of the wounded healer. Everybody has Chiron in their charts, and it's really the place of, on the one hand, great sensitivity, but on the other hand, it's where you find courage. And your Chiron is in your 10th house of career, actually. So, this is something about perhaps a healing function that you're looking to explore, develop, manifest, give to other people. And, there's a certain initiative perhaps that you have about that, which I think is quite strong too, that this is really what you want to do. Does that resonate?
It does. It does. When I went into the energy arts, it's just so fascinating to see how, we can feel better when we connect to that energy, to our own energy.
Right.
And that, to me, just opened up a whole new world of understanding how powerful we are within ourselves, that we can truly help ourselves first before we go outside looking for help, that there are ways that we can create that peace of mind, within us when we're feeling so lost.
Yeah.
Hurt.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because there are a lot of techniques around, aren't there, that are available to us, these days that, maybe 50 years ago were not.
Correct. So I became just fascinated, just like yourself. You became fascinated with astrology. I became fascinated with energy. I mean, so fascinated. The other day, I registered a license plate with the number 8 and energy on it. I haven't gotten it yet. And I said, people who are going to read my license plate, either they're going to say, I hate energy, or those who don't understand energy are going to say that's the infinite sign, right? Infinity.
Yes.
Energy. So that's how much I'm just loving all the ways that we can really create that self-healing first and become more powerful in our own well-being.
I think I'm looking at your chart again, and I'm thinking that this next year will probably bring you all kinds of expansion in the knowledge that you are studying. And the reason I say that is that Jupiter is in Gemini and will be for the first few months of next year. Jupiter, again, astrology is a symbolic system, and a lot of the meanings that are ascribed to the planets are taken from the physical characteristics of the planets themselves. As I said to you earlier, Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system. Everything about Jupiter is expansive and enormous. It rotates on its axis in 10 hours, not 24 like the Earth. And it's 13 times larger than it's thousands of times larger, but the Earth would fit into Jupiter's equator 13 times. And so in astrological thinking, Jupiter expands anything it touches. Wow. And in Gemini, it's going to expand all kinds of opportunities and possibilities. I think if there's a challenge with that energy, it's one of focus. because so many things may seem possible. But
and actually today I did get that card that says I need to focus.
Oh, is that right? Oh, really? Oh, okay.
So you're right on the money as well.
Well, that's good.
Oh my goodness, how funny.
Yeah.
It truly gives us a picture of, pointing us in the right direction.
Well, I think that's, that really, hopefully, it sort of holds up a mirror to what your strengths are and what your potentials are, what your talents, your gifts, your capabilities, what kind of contribution you can make, where you might find challenge in the chart, what can be, how you can work with that. There's absolutely no chart or no placement that is either good or bad. I mean, it's important to understand that. It's entirely to do with, what you make of it. In acting terms, it's how you play the part. You don't have to be a ham, you can.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, you have all this wonderful, there's a lot of mental energy here, I would say, as well as these emotional gifts of the water gives you. And there's also, I'd say, the chart looks like it indicates someone who really wants to manifest the gifts and the talents that she's been given, and that's probably quite important as well.
It's truly an accurate picture of my feelings. I mean, I'm not a young chick, so you did mention a lot of things that I've been through, and to me, it's so accurate. Yet, it's a great path, knowing where I'm going, because we're all here to serve at a bigger level, right? Not just ourselves. But the other day I heard it's through serving that you receive, right? And that alone just like hit me right in the heart.
Right.
So knowing that, I'm meant to learn and share what I'm learning.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that, like you say, in so many different ways. Through the shows, I wrote a book, I do coaching. And to me, it's like, this is how I'm receiving the good energy. It's like just serving. Wow. So, and this kind of spells it out as well. And it's not something that I would ever have thought that astrology would be connected to pretty much my life. And it does. And it does. So this for me was so informative, and knowing I'm on the right path. That's what it did for me. So I truly appreciate, and it's not something I would ever have imagined that it would give me this much information. And when I saw this chart, I have to be honest with you, I saw like Albert Einstein in front of my face. How is Colin really knowing these lines and direction? And so it is a beautiful gift that you have that can really help to make sense of someone's life, and also to help them go towards their purpose in life, right? We all have, like, you found your gift. This is your gift. And many people are still searching for what am I here for? What am I here to do? And this is a great way to, point them in that direction, just based on when they were born and the time they were born. And these are facts. This is not, reading a card and saying, let's do a reading. These are the facts based on. So it's a great way. So I would encourage anyone to connect with you and get this reading done if they really want to know more of where they're heading, what they want to do. Are they on the right track? There's so many answers here for them. And I'm going to take this also. I thank you so much for, again, reading it twice to me, but it's good to.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bringing it up and reminding myself in the direction I'm going. But let's talk about how the study of astrology can really also help us to understand, like what direction our world is going to. I mean, we had a show talk about. Yeah, let's do that.
That's a hugely interesting thing to look at, particularly at this time.
Yes.
Because, well, you don't need to be Nostradamus to know that we're in a time of great change, and it's very important what's going on. Apart from the various social, political polarities, tensions, and divides, there is this global ecocide going on. We have managed to poison the air, the water, the seas, the earth, and that really must change if we're going to survive as a species, I would suggest. There's a lot of hope, I would say, in the situation. Let me talk a little bit about some of the larger planetary cycles. So in 1891 and 2, two of the outer planets came together in their orbital cycles, Pluto and Neptune. This happens once every 500 years.
Right.
And in astrological thinking, it signifies a kind of base note for the next 500 years. That conjunction, where those planets appeared to be in the same place in the sky, from our earthly perspective, astrology is nothing if it's not a perspective-based system. We know, obviously, that they were nowhere near each other, but they just looked as if they were. Occurred in the sign of Gemini. That's where your moon is. So the indications were, in about 1890, that there would be enormous development in technology and in information. And if we look at the 20th century, that, of course, is what has happened. Gemini is an air sign, and therefore to do with information, the things of the mind, technology and understanding. So that's one very important cycle that's sort of in the background. A little closer to home, to the Earth, although still, of course, many millions of miles away, are the orbital cycles of Jupiter and Saturn. Now, where Pluto and Neptune takes 164 years, Pluto takes 248 years to orbit the Sun, Jupiter and Saturn are much closer. Jupiter takes 12 years to go around the Sun, and Saturn takes 29 years. So what does that mean? With Jupiter, it means that every 12 years, Jupiter was in the same place in the sky in relation to the Sun and the Earth as it was when you were born. And likewise with the Saturn cycle. And those two planets have their own cycle, as all planets do. And that cycle is one of 20 years. But it's part of a larger cycle. And the larger cycle is 800 years. And it's divided into 4 segments of 200 years, and each one pertains to a particular element. So between 1800 and 2000, Jupiter and Saturn would meet every 20 years in Earth signs. Now, these planets are said to be socially immensely influential. And if you think about, the direction of technology, science, commerce, and economics of the last 20 years has been very Earth-based. It's about extraction of Earth resources and exploitation of the Earth, trees, minerals, oils, rocks, you name it. Well, the next cycle after the Earth cycle is air. And so in 2020, these two planets came together again in the sign of Gemini, the air sign, and that is the beginning of a 200-year air cycle. And with each segment of the large cycle, you get a preview. So in 1983, those planets met in Libra, an air sign, and that was the beginning of computer technology in a big general way for the general population of the Earth. But where we are now is that we've begun this large air cycle. So already, I would suggest, just 4 short years after that conjunction, we're seeing tremendous technological advances, and ones of which I think could be of great benefit to humanity. So there's that to contend with, if you like. But there are going to be changes in the next couple of years. Some of the outer planets will change by element from water and earth into air and fire. We may see all kinds of disruption. But without going too deeply into that, I'd like to mention one very hopeful prognostication by a famous French astrologer called André Barbeau. He was very gifted in general prediction. And in fact, he predicted the pandemic in 2011. He said in 2020 there would quite likely be some kind of airborne, pandemic. Yeah, he actually died in 2018. But he did say that in 2026, there's a lineup in the sky which is the most hopeful of the 21st century. And he foresaw an enormous opportunity for some kind of restructuring. He didn't say exactly what form that might take. I don't think he knew. But he did see opportunity. And I think it's very important to understand with astrology the difference between a forecast and a prediction.
Yeah.
And on a personal level, that's also true, of course. It's one thing to say you will win the lottery on the 10th of next month.
Right.
It's another thing to say it looks like if you took a risk, it might work out. It might not.
Right. In the finance world, it was the same thing. In the banking world.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It's very important, I think, as a general thing, to kind of try and keep your common sense attached. If you do happen to go to an astrologer, it can be very easy to be, to get too.
The perception may just be, going in the wrong direction.
Exactly, and you need to keep a sense of does this make sense and that kind of thing. And I know myself, if I go to someone for a reading, I sometimes it's very easy just to hear what you want to hear. So again, I think that we are in a tremendously important time for humanity generally, and there are some people, and I don't know enough about this, but there are some people who say that the whole world is entering a phase of gradual ascension. And this may be true, maybe it's going to be that the collective energies will refine, we will all vibrate at a higher level, that the terrible conflicts that we see will dissolve.
We'll hope that for sure, right?
Yeah, the general, miasma of anger that's so easy to succumb to will perhaps drain away, and we might look at each other as connected.
And ultimately, that's what really brings us together to create a better world. Like, we are part of this world.
Yeah, and I think that's what's been so difficult for mechanistic science in the last 200 years. I mean, look, science has been incredibly successful. It's given us the basis of all modern engineering and medicine, mathematics, you name it. But the thing is that the astrological system, the foundation of it is that we live in a connected universe. And that we're all connected, but so is everything else in some way, And I think I do think that understanding will develop, and
that's where the hearts open up.
Yeah, so
the sympathy, the compassionate, right? The higher levels of vibration.
Yeah. I mean, in the long term, I think, definitely. Whether I'll be around to see it or not, I don't know, but that's okay.
Who says you're not? Magic happens as the years go by.
That magic does indeed happen, yeah. Right? That much is true. Absolutely.
Well, as we bring this show to a landing, how can people get in touch with you? And also, you've done such a beautiful job with me. I'm sure there's people who love to contact you.
Well, absolutely. If anybody would like to get in touch, my website is pleasantvilleastrology.com. I'm in Pleasantville, Westchester, New York State. I have a physical office. I meet people in person, but I'm also available, worldwide by Zoom or Skype or whatever. And I'm offering a discount to anybody watching this we're going to take your name, Giovanna. We're going to say Gigi 24. It's 2024, so that's GIGI24, Gigi 24. If you go to pleasantvilleastrology.com, and if you'd like to make an appointment, when you get to the payment page, you put in the code GIGI24, and that will give you a 30% discount. So
how beautiful. Well, thank you. What a beautiful gift.
Oh, and that's available through October. After that, then that will go away. But if anybody wants to take advantage of that, I'd be very happy to meet and work with you. I look forward to it.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you, Colin, so much for joining me today. I've learned a lot. You've taught me a lot for sure. And just giving me a great outlook, on what to expect and why I feel certain way, right? There's a reason why I'm heading to the direction that I'm heading to, which again, validates my purpose and why I'm here. And that is so significant to me. And I'm sure a lot of people will feel the same if they have their reading to have them feel.
Thank you. I hope so. I mean, I think that's exactly, as you say, it's really about validation. It's about, being seen in a way, there you are.
Authentic way, right? The authentic way.
It's finding your authenticity. That's what it is. It can help you to do that.
Beautiful. So thank you so much, Colin. Thank you everyone for watching us today. And until next time, I'm your host, Giovanna Tartarone from Sparking Change with Gigi. Thank you so much. Thank you, Colin, again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchangenow.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change with Gigi.